He didn't disappear all at once. There was no dramatic goodbye, no final message, no moment where everything suddenly fell apart. He just faded, slowly, quietly, almost politely. The kind of disappearing that doesn't disturb anyone. He was always there. At work, he showed up on time, smiled when spoken to, nodded during conversations he barely heard. "Yeah, I'm good." That was his favorite line. It was easy, effortless. No one ever questioned it. Because the truth is, people don't listen to the words. They listen to comfort. And "I'm good" makes everyone comfortable. At home, it was even quieter. The walls didn't ask questions. The silence didn't need answers. He would sit on the edge of his bed some nights, staring at nothing in particular, trying to figure out when everything started to feel so heavy. It wasn't one big thing. That's what made it harder to explain. It was the small things. Messages he stopped replying to, calls he said he'd return, but never did. Moments where he wanted to speak, but chose not to. Again, and again, and again, until one day, it just became who he was. He wasn't always like this. There was a time when he laughed easily, when conversations didn't feel like effort, when silence didn't feel like a weight pressing against his chest. Back then, people noticed him, or maybe he believed they did. But life has a way of slowly rearranging you. A disappointment here, a betrayal there, a dream that didn't work out the way you imagined. Nothing loud enough to break you instantly, but enough to change you quietly. He started withdrawing in ways no one could see. Not physically. He was still there, still present, still visible, but something inside him had already begun to leave. There were moments, small ones, where someone could have noticed. A delayed response, a forced smile, a conversation he didn't finish. But those moments passed quickly, because everyone else was busy with their own lives, their own problems, their own noise, and he understood that. He never blamed anyone. That's the thing about him. He always understood, even when no one understood him. So he made it easier for everyone. He asked for less, spoke less, showed less, until eventually, there was almost nothing left to see. He became background, not invisible, just unremarkable, easy to overlook, easy to forget. If he didn't show up one day, people might notice, but only briefly, only enough to say, "Hey, haven't seen him around?" And then life would move on, and maybe deep down, he knew that realization didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, like everything else. One night, sitting in the dark, he asked himself a question he had been avoiding for a long time. If I disappeared, would it really matter? He didn't have an answer. And somehow, that silence felt louder than anything else. The next few days felt heavier, not because anything new had happened, but because something had finally been acknowledged. He stopped pretending as much, not outwardly. People still saw the same version of him. But inside, he was tired. Tired of explaining things no one asked about. Tired of feeling things he couldn't name. Tired of existing in a way that felt invisible. So he began to let go. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way anyone could point to and say, "That's when it happened." Just quietly. He stopped reaching out, stopped expecting replies, stopped hoping someone would notice the silence. Because silence had become normal. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into something that no longer felt like time. And then, one day, he didn't show up. At first, no one noticed. Not immediately. Why would they? He had trained the world to expect nothing from him. A missed call, a message left unread, a chair empty at work. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe he'll reply later. Life continued, until later started to feel different. Someone checked again. No response. Another day passed. Still nothing. And then, slowly, the realization began to settle in. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to make people pause. Have you heard from him? No, I thought you had. And just like that, the silence he had lived in became visible. But by then, it was too late. Because the truth is, he didn't disappear that day. He had been disappearing for a long time. In conversations that went nowhere. In moments that were ignored. In feelings he buried because there was no space for them. He disappeared, piece by piece. And no one noticed, because he made it easy not to. Sometimes, people don't vanish suddenly. They fade, right in front of us, while we're too busy to see it, and by the time we finally look, all that's left is the space they used to fill, and the quiet question we can't undo. When did they start disappearing? And why didn't we notice?